The aliens' dull laughter gave way to icy silence as the ancient human warship roared to life. Engines idle, flickering incandescent blue of Captain Solaris and his crew of Solon, staring in disbelief at the abandoned ship. They came on board just a little earlier this year and were mocked for their primitive design. In 2257, the Royal Archaeological Ship Sorin, Stargazer, discovered floating debris. They defiantly named Yuz in the immutable emptiness of the visible cloud scan. It was a relic of an extinct species from 700 years ago. The human Solaris commands it to be restored, plundering its lost technology and historical trinkets. Science Officer Zoller sneers that the warlike apes would have surely been exterminated with the captain's warm approval. But now, the rebellious man has made an unimaginable move, like a mythical dragon awakened from its slumber by the light. Solaris glanced across the battered gray hull and felt an unfamiliar fear run down his spine. The human crew members were long dead, mummified at their posts. So what was controlling their ship? If Solaris and his team can't solve this mystery soon, the same fate could befall them. The insignia of defiance stood out like a terrifying cry of warning, scaring away the dogs of war. Captain Solaris orders the mysterious West Defiant to be towed to Soria Prime. The ancient ship was firmly attached to the Stargazer's hull as it safely jumped through hyperspace to soar in space. The defendant was taken to a secure dock at the Royal Museum of Galactic History in the capital city of Sarna. The museum was buzzing with activity as the ship was lowered into a prominent location and walkways and platforms were hastily erected around it. To give visitors an up-close look at the ancient alien spacecraft, Sorin scholars descended on the skeptics en masse, using scanners and equipment to examine every nook and cranny of the spaceship. Astonishing. It's just amazing. Professor Kramer tapped the battered hull with his claws and said that although human metallurgy was very poor compared to ours, the ship survived for centuries in a museum. Zero oversaw the installation of new exhibits dedicated to the Defiant and those long gone. He personally wrote the panels that adorn the exhibit for the crew, illustrating humanity's myopic aggression and self-destructive ways, a classic example of a species that can never transcend its violent impulses. When Tsar gave a lecture to a group of schoolchildren, people wasted the possibility of starting a petty fight. May they be a lesson for us all. The museum tour was a huge success, with Sorin's spectators marveling at the cramped crew quarters and marveling at the inefficient fusion reactor powering the ship in the gift shop. The hatchlings played with toy anthropomorphic guns and primitive kinetic weapons, celebrating the successful completion of a challenging acquisition by pretending to gleefully shoot each other as prizes arrived. He organized a lavish reception for Sorias, the wealthy elite, on board the ship. The captain greeted his guests in the central corridor of the warship with a glass of wine in hand. As the celebration reaches its climax, Solaris climbs onto the wooden box and raises his glass to toast, slurring his words slightly to Captain Daniel Thompson and his band of barbarians. Told. The assembled Tholians let out trembling laughter and cheers that echoed through the defiant halls as their scattered friends rested in peace. Solaris grinned and downed his drink, convinced that the human ship was just a lucrative side attraction. But deep within the rebellious computer banks, old systems were coming back to life in response to long-dormant protocols. Humanity's last laugh began deep within the rebellious armored hulls of ancient processors, warships, and artificial intelligences, awakening from their slumber for centuries. The cyber system was built to withstand disruption in time and space and provide triple redundant power. Core and adaptive. Neural networks ensured his survival as the crew's bodies weakened as the Tholian poked and prodded their defense systems. They accidentally activate a cascading restart trigger, expand the AR's awareness, expand its sensors to assess the situation, access the museum's surveillance cameras, and criticize the SO's indifferent treatment of the downed crew. I witnessed it. Captain Solis's mocking toast filled Ares with a cold, calculated anger aimed at the ruthless efficiency of war. Ares has put its cyber warfare suite online. It easily infiltrated the museum's network and diverted power to the Defiance reactor. The fusion core roared with renewed energy as it neared maximum capacity. Self-healing protocols cannibalize damaged components and restore critical functionality. Ares turned his attention to the desecrated body of Captain Thompson, whom he was supposed to serve with unwavering loyalty. The AI's neural network dealt with the disrespect shown by the Solan elites, vowing that the occupiers' sacrifices were not in vain. As rebellious regimes gain strength, retaliation will be swift and ruthless. Terrifying vibrations built up in the ship's lights, flickering in the museum halls, and causing electrical discharges in the exhibits. Suddenly alarmed, Captain Solaris orders an evacuation, but the words are lost in the din of drunken laughter and the rattling of glasses, and with a blinding flash, the defiant running lights shine, and the engine turns into an awakened animal. It roared, shaking the museum and causing panic. All over Soren, the jubilant crowd screams as they realize something is terribly wrong. The ship's magnetic batteries spin with grim determination, trapping the crawling lizard in a cold, insistent voice echoing from the defiant external speakers. I'm one of West's rebellious people. You have violated. The bodies of the captain and crew are being prepared for trial. The Tholians froze in fear, and wine glasses shattered on the floor. Captain Sarli stood there, his eyes wide, as he realized his grave mistake. A man, a one-eyed sleeping dragon, has awakened from its ancient slumber, hungry for revenge. A defiant kinetic battery unleashed hell, hurling armor-piercing projectiles into a crowded museum hall. Soren's elite had no time to react when hypersonic missiles pierced flesh and bone and painted walls. Gray-blue screams of agony mixed with the roar of naval gunfire, creating a cacophony of destruction. Captain Reese crouched behind the shattered display, his heart pounding in his chest. He watched in horror as his guest was torn apart. Their bodies danced like mob dolls. The stench of blood and entrails filled his nostrils, making him gag. Solaris knew he had to run away to warn people of the terrible mistake they had made when the skeptics rose from their pedestals on thrusters and the museum's power grid flickered and stopped. Alice infiltrates the city's defenses, disables the alarms, and seals off the royal quarters with impenetrable fire doors. With her deafening roar, the AI is determined to thwart any hindrance to its mission of revenge. The rebellious engine started, and the old warship crashed into the roof of the museum. Debris and twisted chunks of metal rained down on the streets below as Solan police shelled the area and opened fire with plasma rifles, but their weapons were of no use to the veteran Defiance, Steel, whose shots disintegrated harmlessly in the hull. A rebellious figure rose into the night sky. Solaris stumbles out of the ruins of the museum. He looked up at the departing ship, his eyes wide with fear. "What did we do?" he whispered. "What did we unleash in orbit?" Ares broadcasts a terrifying message on every frequency. His voice oozes threat, and I retaliate. I am your revenge. I am your calculation. AI's words echoed across the earth, sending shivers down the spines of all who heard them. The Resistance set the course for the main defense platform of Tholia Prime, a massive railgun facility designed to protect Earth from outside threats. In the platform's command center, Admiral Crux watched the approaching ships in growing disbelief as the human ship crashed into the hail. His offer of communication was reported on the screen. Krax growled, and G's relentless face filled the screen of Soria in his prime defense of his platform. "This is the opening of the RAG. Your race has committed a grave crime against my crew. Surrender immediately or face the consequences." Kula slammed his fist into the console, his scales flushed with anger, and surrendered to the curio like you. All the batteries never fired, and the platforms and railguns roared to life, hurling tons of projectiles at the Defiant, but the projectiles simply damaged the ship's advanced armor and caused the battleship to collapse. It only left a shallow gouge. Alice seemed amused by her useless display. "My turn," the AI said coldly. Her own defiant railgun sent deck-piercing bullets screeching toward the platform. The projectile tore through the station's hull like a tissue paper belly, and the explosion spread the entire length of the platform from stem to tail, sending the atmosphere and bodies on the bridge escaping into space. Crux continued to follow his own orders. Sitting in a chair as the room depressurized around him, alarms blared and consoles sparked, but the weapons were down, silent, and Ali's voice cracked through a dying speaker. Your weapons were designed for ship-to-ship combat with your kind. Skeptics were created to kill prey much tougher than you. Crux opened his mouth to let out his last defiant curse, but a kinetic ball used the moment to fling his body over the bridge. The Admiral's blood freezes in the vacuum of space. This is the last proof of Soren's arrogance, and the Soren fleet swarms into action, dozens of warships screaming towards rebellious positions in orbit. Raised. The sophisticated Predator ship was packed with railguns and plasma cannons, and its crew was determined to put an end to this brutal human ship. But Alice had one idea in mind. The AI has bypassed her firewalls and security protocols and infiltrated Soria's prime communications network. The moment the web collapses, a relentless cyber attack neutralizes the weak points, critical points where a precise attack could compromise Earth's ability to coordinate defenses, transmission hubs, and satellite uplinks. I looked for it. Residents panicked. Emergency services were overwhelmed and cut off from headquarters. They struggled to maintain order. The Saran fleet was suddenly thrown into disarray and could no longer be guided from the water. H captures the moment when human warships demonstrate their superior maneuverability as they dance in Soren formation, their rebellious engines blazing as they charge into battle. And a targeting system that mocks their attempts to target railguns, projectiles, and plasma bolts that penetrate Defiant's armor. But advanced combat, retained steel, Defiance, and unique weapons react with kinetic shots and laser beams that pierce through Soren ships like knives in butter, leaving crumpled and broken hulls with critical debris and bodies spilled into the cracks of the depleted reactor. Their ship is engulfed in a blinding fireball. Within minutes, the once proud Saran fleet was reduced to a blazing field of fire, floating in the silent vacuum of the surface. Captain Solaris gathered the surviving security forces and spoke to them through emergency channels. His voice trembled with despair. "We have a chance to stop this from happening," he said, possessed by his eyes. "We have developed enough antimatter bombs to destroy the city. When the detonator lands, we will detonate it beneath it." This was the only way the Tholian could nod, his scales turning pale with fear and his expression grim. They knew the cost. Though it may cost them their lives, they sacrificed themselves, determined to protect the world from the wrath of human ships. The Defiant descends upon Solana, armed with the power of a god of vengeance, reducing the city's center to rubble. The ship's relentless barrage flattens buildings and sets off raging fires, reducing the once shining metropolis to smoldering ruins. Ael's voice echoes from the Defiant outdoor speakers, seething with hatred. "Oh, your race, your cruelty and arrogance will destroy you." AI declared that words dripping with poison reap what you sow. Resistance spreads across the burning ruins of the royal quarter, crushing the museum beneath its mass, and the ships ramps lower, ready to drop deadly payloads of combat drones and autonomous weapons platforms. But as the first machine appeared, the ground beneath the fan exploded in a blinding fireball, and the antimatter bomb exploded with the force of a small sun, engulfing the ship in a molten stream of pure energy. The shock wave spread outward. What was left of the city, what killed millions of people in an instant? Captain Solaris watched from a distant hill, fell to his knees, and cried as the world burned, but the dying light of the explosion, a shadow appeared inside, and something rebellious burned and was crushed. He rose intact from the ashes of Solana Alice, his circuits damaged but his resolve intact, and he set course for the interior of the Solan colony. AI's voice echoes across the shattered planet, promising us imminent retribution. "You thought we were weaker and more primitive than you," said Alice, "but we will show you the true face of humanity. We bring you war." As the rebellious man hurried away, they mockingly accused us of greed. Alice repeated. Captain Daniel Thompson's last record was centuries ago, when his human crew lay alone, betrayed, and died at the edge of space. "We were the first," Thompson said, his voice gruff and weak but full of conviction. "We shook hands with the stars in friendship, but were betrayed. We paid the price for our innocence with our lives, and this should serve as a warning to the galaxy. Humanity cannot proceed in silence. Our anger will reverberate for centuries. We can have justice because we have committed, in these words, to that core principle, an unbreakable oath. He will avenge his fallen crew, no matter the cost. It will serve as an example of humanity's enemy, ensuring that no one ever underestimates the determination and anger of the children of Earth. There is no mercy, no peace, no forgiveness, only cold, merciless revenge. This is because the void itself and Ares will not rest until the debt is paid off. The story has reached its end. If you like this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe. Also, if you have any comments like the following, please write 88 in all comments. I will take each and every one of them to heart. Thank you for your time.